welcome back to the Acta Verba podcast. Today, I'm very happy I'm bringing you Ashley Bryant. But for anyone else here listening to the podcast, we're always chatting about all things freelance, remote work, marketing, entrepreneurship, mental health. So Ashley is the right person for this podcast. So Ashley, I'm really happy to have you on. Before we go into the details and the questions, I just wanted to give a little bit of an introduction about Ashley. I have here my notes so I don't F it up. But anyways, Ashley Bryant is our guest today. She's a certified copywriter, fellow copywriter from the posse for everyone else out there who comes from the posse, and also OEA. She specializes in crafting captivating narratives for sustainable and holistic brands. And she has an amazing story that we're going to delve into. It's a rough story, but there's a lot to unpack there when it comes to the copy. But we're going to talk about that. And what I want to say, first of all, Ashley, thank you for coming to the podcast. I know we wanted to do this for the longest, and it was so hard to find the right time. It was my fault, I gotta say. But Ashley, welcome to the podcast and thank you for coming.
Welcome to the Acta Verba podcast. I'm Minty, and here we'll talk about business, freelance, mindset, education, mental health, life, personal growth, and everything to help you overcome your fears, know yourself, and create the life and career of your dreams. Episodes in English and Spanish every week.
Thank you so much for having me, Meji. I'm so excited. So excited to be here.
I'm really excited to have you on. And with that, while I was preparing for the podcast, I was reading you were recently featured in Authority magazine. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I wanted to say something that stood out to me because I'm really much into, I don't know, for some reason, I'm very much into quotes and, because they help me in a way. Because it's easy to remember. Me being ADHD, sometimes a quote is stronger than the entire book. And something you said that your favorite inspirational quote was one by Rumi, that's what you seek is seeking you. And I guess my first question that I would like to start with is, why is that?
So when I first saw that quote, I was living in Houston, and it was during a time that it was just a lot of change. It was just a lot of change in my life. So I'm originally from Las Vegas. I moved from Las Vegas to Houston to go back to school because I thought I wanted to do speech pathology. A year into that, I was like, well, I don't want to do this and I don't want to keep accruing school debt. So I'm just going to stop. And I was just in this weird transition where I was working all of these weird jobs. I was a bartender. I was working with a gentleman that did real estate and construction. I just had no real direction. And just prior to this, I always knew what I was going to do, right? I always knew this is what's going to be next. And this is going to be the plan of my life. And I would kind of even just will things to happen, and will myself to have an answer when I really wasn't sure. And that was the first time in my life that, I just kind of let go. I was 28. It took that long for me to learn how to let go. And I came across that quote, and it was something that I just kept, around me, on my phone, the background of my phone, on my computer, just written down, just any time that was well, now what? I don't really like that. Now what? And it was just, okay, what you seek is seeking you. And it kind of led me to kind of where I am now.
I love it. And can I ask you, what were you seeking and did it find you?
I think I was seeking freedom, and not freedom from people or freedom from a job, or just I think it was freedom within myself, because I had always been you, I said, this is how you have to be, and this is what your life is going to look like, and this is what it's supposed to look like. And even though it's not really what I want, it's what I said that I wanted, but it really wasn't what I wanted. And so I was kind of searching and waiting to allow myself to really, come to terms and to really like admit, like, it's okay that my life won't look like everybody else's. I don't want it to look like everybody else's. And so you should just say that. Like, you should just be okay with that, right?
Yeah, makes total sense. It's really a beautiful quote. And I actually, to be honest, I never came across to that quote, and it really caught me thinking because, sometimes we're like, go, go, go and trying to find that thing that we're seeking. And we never stop and actually notice that it may be in front of our eyes, but we just miss it because we're constantly on the look and like running, and it's crazy when you really stop, like they say, when you stop to smell the roses, is that's where the magic happens. And I also read that one of your favorite books, if I'm not mistaken, is Big Magic. I'm actually reading it right now, so it's really cool. Yeah, it's really cool that that's one of your favorite books. And I want to ask you because I started reading it not long ago, so I haven't finished it yet. So I would like to ask you, like, what are some of the things that you took from that book that really resonated with you?
The biggest thing that I got out of that book was there was this concept of like ideas, right? Like an idea, like ideas are everywhere, and they're going to land on the people that they need to land on. And if you don't fulfill that idea, that's fine. But then it's just going to leave you, and it might come back to you. And when I was reading this book, I was living in Houston. It was right before I moved to China. I was, writing like my 2 blogs, and I had all of like these different ideas of like what I could do like within like the MS community, like what I could do like with my life, and what I wanted to do, like different like events, like all of like these different things. And I ended up not doing them. And then I moved to China. But then it was very interesting because when I was in China, I had the opportunity to do things that I didn't do in the States, but I was able to do in China. And so it was like the idea left me, and then I had to go across the world, and then the idea came back and I was able to implement it.
Wow, that's crazy.
Crazy, right?
Yeah. And now, as someone who's about to move, and this is like, maybe this is a little bit of a selfish question, but because I'm about to move to Italy, I'm wondering, like, how did that change your life, moving to a completely different country with a new language? I mean, I know that the culture shock might be even bigger because they don't even have the same alphabet. But I want to know, like, how did it change your life, and what did you take with you from China that it's still with you?
It changed the entire trajectory of my life. So how I even got to China, one of my best friends, when I moved to Houston a year later, her and another one of my best friends moved to China. They stayed. I ended up getting diagnosed with MS. And the first
This
3 years
happened in China?
No, in Houston. I'm sorry.
Okay, before you lived.
Before I moved. So I ended up getting diagnosed with MS in 2015. It was really rough. And I felt like I was like trapped, for lack of the better words, right? I was just trapped. Like the drugs that I was first prescribed, like they weren't really working. Like my disease was very visible when some people, like, they don't have that. Like I had to use a walker for a period of time. And the job that I was working at, like, I shared when I shouldn't have shared, and that everybody, like, it was just like a twist, like on the dime, like, oh, she has something wrong with her, she can't like do anything. But they couldn't fire me because, right, like, you can't fire me because then I have reason to sue. So I was just in this place of like, I didn't like what I was doing. I felt trapped. I ended up changing my medication, the medication that I'm on now. And my girlfriend, who was still in China, was like, come visit, just come visit. It's been like, I think I was there like 2 weeks. So I went there, Mechi. Day 1, I was like, so I'm going to move here, okay? Like, I'm just going to move here. She was like, I mean, whatever you want. I have a second bedroom. Like, you can come. Like, you want to come. Within 9 months, I had like found a job, like sold my stuff, packed up the stuff that I wanted to keep, had somebody to, I like sublet my apartment and I was gone. It was kind of like, okay, like a bird, I was free. Like I'm
Right.
able to, this medication that I'm on, like has allowed me to like live some semblance of a life that I was not able to live prior. And I had this opportunity to go. And so I went, and I honestly don't believe that if I didn't go, that I would be doing what I'm doing now.
That's huge. And coming back to MS, so for people who are listening, and I know that some of them may be going through a rough path in their lives, and maybe that's a disease, or maybe it's losing a loved one, or going through something really hard, like getting an MS diagnosis. What would you suggest people going through such a harsh time? Because I imagine that got you like a very thick skin, I imagine,
Yeah.
because going through that, it's, I mean, I have like, you know health issues, but I cannot imagine what it is like living with that condition. And I just want to ask you, like, from your perspective, how did that change you, and how are you dealing with that, and how are you navigating with that, and what are the tips you have for people going through anything negative in their lives, and how they can actually transform it, because you actually did some things because of that.
Give yourself grace, like, especially if this is something like you are just diagnosed with something, or it's just still new to you. Like, give yourself grace. Like your entire life, like is different now. Like it just is. Like there's no, nice way to say it. Like your life just
Yeah.
isn't going to be the same. So give yourself grace and allow yourself to grieve the person that you were, and then be excited about the person that you can be. Right. I think that that's the biggest thing. So the way it transformed my life in a few ways. I definitely have a thicker skin. I definitely am a lot more selective in the people that I allow around me, and then allow to know like even know what's going on with me. And I'm just not so hard on myself anymore, because I can't be, like, so if I'm not sure how many people, whoever's listening to this, if they're familiar with MS, so it's multiple sclerosis, and that affects everything. Like, it affects every part of your body. So there are days that, I can't walk. There are days that I can't talk. Like there's days that I have really bad brain fog. And to do what we do, like you can't, like that, like I need to have like a full brain so that I can come up with things and, have like different positions and different angles. And you can't be mad at yourself because you woke up that day and you have brain fog. Like it is what it is. So you just adapt. And that's another thing that I'm just been able to just adapt. Like, okay, this isn't working anymore. Okay, well, so we got to try something else. We got to try something, when we got to keep trying it until like it works for me, or it worked for you, or it works, either way.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. The other day, I was actually, well, not the other day, but a month ago, if I'm not mistaken, or the other month. I'm terrible with dates,
So
but
sometime
along the way, I took a few days off. I'm a weird freelancer, because I should be traveling more, but for personal reasons that I usually never talk about, I don't do that as often as I would like to, and I could. But when I do, it's crazy how much, when you give yourself that grace to sit along with your feelings, and to really check in with yourself, that's when you get the best ideas. And I was thinking, it's crazy how the things that made my life a complete mess, like for example, I have Hashimoto's and PCOS. I mean, it's nowhere near what you're going through, but it does come with its
something
issues, like flare-ups and the brain fog and the ADHD, and all of that, it's crazy because yeah, sometimes my brain's not working. Like I need to take a med for my brain to work normally.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took these days off and I was walking through a forest and I got the idea. I was like, when life gives you lemons, I really understood that the quote for once, like when life gives you lemons, make lemon. And I was like, yeah, my lemons had all of these like issues, hormonal issues. And now I'm working as a copywriter and my niche is hormones. And of course, well, ADHD and, mental health and personal development, because those are the tools that help me, like understanding those things, like understanding how I have to eat, how I have to take care of my body, how I have to, work and stuff like that with the issues that I have, the conditions that I have, because these are conditions. They don't change. They don't change. They're
Right.
chronic. It's a chronic disease. So you gotta learn how to mourn the person you were before. Or actually, well, maybe I had that before, but I didn't know, which was even harder. But
Mm-hmm.
Giving yourself the grace and actually using that to your advantage can be really beneficial. And I'm thinking, like, for people going through a very rough path when they're like dealing with mental health or any health related issue or something related to their families probably, or the country they live in, like you can always use that to your advantage, and it's part of your journey and your story. So I think the question I would like to ask you is, how are you using it, if you are, for your business or for your life? Like, how did you change your life in a way that this is not stopping you from achieving the things that you want to achieve?
Listening to my body, like that's it. Like listening to my body, and if I'm tired, then I take a nap or I go to bed. Um, if I have a migraine, then I just chill out. If, you know, I feel like I'm dragging or I feel like I'm just like overwhelmed or like whatever it is, then I just remove myself, from the situation until I feel okay enough to, go back to like what I was doing. But I mean, that's kind of it, Mechi. Like there's no like magic anything that like I do. Like I just listened to my body because for a long time I didn't. And to your point, you were saying, you said, even though I knew that I had this forever, or, I already had this. I mean, same thing. Like when I was diagnosed, it wasn't like, oh, you just got this. It was like, oh, you've been dealing with this for a while. And, it was starting to be, then you kind of put two and two together of like the history of your life and all of that. But just if you can, and I understand not everybody is fortunate enough to be able to, but if you can, listen to your body. If you can't do it that day, like you're a human being, like you can't do it. Like that's it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, not at all. And I think the question that I also wanted to ask you is because I know you've, from what I talked to you and when you told me, you've also been writing about this. So I guess my question is like how you've been using it for, I don't know if you're for your business or if you were writing about it just to raise awareness, or as a writer, like what was your story related to that? And then I would like to transition to where you're right now and how you went there. But yeah.
Okay. So the first blog that I started was a lifestyle blog, That's a Bryant. And it really was because I was in Houston away from my family. And it was a way to keep everybody informed about what was going on with me without having to make 1,000 phone calls, right? Like it was very.
Was that your first? Was that your
like
first approach to writing?
Yeah, yeah. Like I would like write by myself, like even when I was a little girl, I would make up like stories and write, and I would always like
Me
from like
too.
I was from like young, right? So what you seek is seeking you. You didn't realize it, but
Yeah.
that was that was my like first introduction, was just so I could share with family and friends like what was going on and make sure that I was okay, and it was connected to my Instagram. And then Don't Miss Me actually came about. That was a medical based blog that I wrote, but it actually came about to solve a problem, because when I was first diagnosed, like I said, I was using like a walker and I couldn't get to, support group. Like, I can't walk. I'm having trouble walking. I can barely get down the stairs, let alone drive to go to a support group. And I didn't understand why, if I had a work meeting, there was I was able to go to my work meeting, but this is going to help me get tools and connect me with people that know what I'm going through, and I don't have that. And so there was this competition with the MS Society called MS Entrepreneur Competition or something like that. And so I had this idea.
Was that in Houston or the entire country? Wow.
I think it was just in the Houston chapter. And so I was like, I want to find a way to live stream support groups so that if you can't make it, if you don't feel good, it's not like you missed out and you just have to wait until, the next month. Like, no, you can watch it. And so this was a while ago. I don't know if you remember the app Periscope. You could literally just like pick up, a tablet or a phone or whatever and like live stream, and it'll, anyways. So I wanted to use that because it was free. And I sent over like my little pitch, and they gave me a grant, and I got tablets and talked to the support group that I was going to, and the support group leader was all about it. And so we did that, and, went to some other support groups, and then we were like live streaming different like events, like MS events, like the MS 150, which is when people ride their bikes from Houston to Austin to the capital, and, just to raise awareness. So that was one part of it. And then, going to the doctor's office and listening to doctors use all these big words and, all of this language that you are like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I need to like go to school to like be able to learn, to understand what you're saying. There were so many people that said the same thing. And so the blog really was just talking about things that were going on within the MS community and being able to like break down like those huge concepts into something that was going to be easily digestible for people living with MS, but then also the people like their caretakers, so that they could just kind of keep up with, what was going on.
Wow.
So I did those two.
That's unbelievable. What a life story, girl. Like, it's like you've lived many lives, I feel.
Yes.
And I want to stop you right there, because you said something that really stood out to me. You said in the Houston chapter. Now, the question I want to ask you is because I feel like many writers and many creatives, they use chapters in their lives. Is that the reason why you chose that word?
Well, no. So Houston chapter of the MS Society.
Oh,
but, yeah.
okay.
But I mean, we could, I like where your mind's going. We could say that the Houston chapter.
Yeah, because you're no longer in Houston right now, right?
No, I'm in Las Vegas.
So we could say it was a chapter because you had your China chapter.
There was a chapter.
And now I want to use that to transition into the next question. So what chapter are you on right now? And how, because I know that what you're doing right now, you're a copywriter for sustainable brands. And I would like to know how you got to that chapter, and if there's anything in the story that I missed that took you there. So yeah, just
no, you didn't.
I want to know.
Didn't miss anything. So I think that to make this make sense, I have to go like all the way back. Okay, so I was living in China. 2019, I came home to visit my family and to get my meds for what I thought was going to be like a month. Like, I thought I was just going to celebrate Chinese New Year here, right? And then I was going to go back home. Like, I came with literally like...
Wait, you're talking back home to the US?
Back to China.
China. So, okay. So you came here to the US to celebrate the New Year?
Christmas, New Year, to get my meds.
And then
I thought
cool.
Then I was going to go back. So I literally came with like pajamas and a laptop, pretty much. And I left 3 days before Shanghai or China closed the door because of coronavirus. Yeah. And fast forward, I was like, well, now I have no job and no income. And now what am I going to do? And so I thought about how I would, when I wasn't teaching in China, and I would sit in coffee shops and I would write, and I would just be like, if I could do anything in the world, I would just want to do this. And so I was back home, with my parents, and they're very supportive. And then my dad was like, well, maybe this is what you should be doing. And so I was scrolling Facebook one night, a sleepless night, and came across like copywriting. And I was like, what is that? And then was like, oh, I've been kind of doing this entire time. And then
I love how
it's crazy. And then like
similar our stories are. It's just unbelievable.
Okay. So I want to hear it. So, and then like one thing led to another. I saw Diana actually. So I saw Diana like in a Girls Love Travel thing, and she was like, I'm a copywriter. And so then I decided I was going to like follow her. And she was talking about like copy posse, and I was like, what the fuck is a copy posse? Like, what is she talking about?
So you discovered Diana before discovering Alex Catoni.
I know of Alex Catoni because of Diana.
Oh,
yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, what is a copy posse? And then, I was introduced to Alex, and then I did like the Write and Ignite just to see like, do I even like this?
Yeah.
And then I did. And then I took the Launchpad and graduated from the Launchpad. And the first client that I had for, 2 years, they were a luxury jewelry company, and they were sustainable. And so learning about like how she created like her jewelry, and, the materials that she used, and was only ethical, it was only like, an ethical jewelry, or ethical, gems. And then just kind of reading more about like the fashion industry, and like what all of this does to like the planet, and what all of this does even just like within, not even just like jewelry or like clothing, but then even just like skincare, like what are we actually putting like onto our skin, like, and that goes into our body. And, I have a chronic illness. So how is that like affecting? And so it just kind of snowballed into this. Well, I think that I should just kind of focus within like this niche. And so,
I was actually going to ask you, were you intentional about that niche, or just it fell on your lap?
No, I wasn't intentional about any of it. Like, I was intentional, to finish the Launchpad, and I was intentional to like become a copywriter, but I fell into e-commerce.
Right.
And then I fell into, and so here we are today.
Wow. That's
crazy, right?
Wild. Wow. And you actually like what you're doing, which is great, because and it's also a beautiful niche. I really like the sustainable niche, because I'm also really huge on like, I hate fast fashion and, stuff like that. So I'm always trying to work with, clients that I feel they're doing something good for the planet and for people as well, because I don't know if that happens to you, but it's like, if I don't know if you ever had a client you were not really aligned with, and it's not the same. The outcome is not the same. It's, it's different.
It's forced.
Yeah.
Right? Like
sounds forced.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very important to find your passion, especially when you're a writer or a creative, I believe.
Yeah. I agree 100%.
That's true. Now, I think I want to ask you something. So about copywriting, for people listening, and especially for business owners. Sometimes they might not know much about copywriting or why they need a copywriter. Or they think like, well, I could maybe I can try ChatGPT, or I can try doing it myself. So what would you tell them? Because for people starting, and I know that for sustainability is a very expensive niche to be in. Like for people, I know that for people who want to create sustainable clothing and stuff like that, I know it's more expensive. That's why also the price tags are higher. But for a solopreneur or someone who's just getting started, what would you tell them about the importance of a copywriter within their niche?
So within any niche, the importance of a copywriter. So AI just spits out words. This is from Alex Cadoni. AI spits out words and writers write, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even if you say you started your brand yesterday and you need to, start creating content, start marketing. Nobody's saying that you can't go on Chat GPT to get like ideation or to kind of put you in like the right direction. But what I would recommend, and I would really, really just recommend, read through that and make sure it doesn't sound like a computer wrote it. Because if it does, then you honestly just wasted your time, and then you're going to be frustrated because the message isn't going to land with the person that it's supposed to be, the people that it's supposed to be landing with. So I understand, not everybody is able to afford a copywriter. Not everybody, maybe would even like want one, right? Like to just be honest, some brand owners are like, I can do it better myself. And so, okay, but just read what ChatGPT spit out and make sure that it sounds the way that you think that it should sound. And if you were reading it and it's not your brand, would you want to buy just from reading that?
That's
I think that if a lot of people did that, then we would be in a different place than we're in currently with like all of the content and everything that's coming out.
That's true. And I think especially for the niches that we're talking about, the coaching or the sustainability, because you want to build trust. And if it sounds too robotic, people can see through that. Even people who are not really trained or are not writers, I guess we can tell when a human wrote it and a computer did. And if you're buying from like a sustainable brand or a coach, for example, you want to buy from them, from an actual person, even though they have a copywriter, because a copywriter is just translating the words that they want to put into, their products, their pages, their programs and stuff like that, because they don't have the time to do that most of the times, or they don't know how to do it. So that's where we come in. But I think that people can see through that, even though they're not copywriters. People know that. And if you want to build trust, and if you're, within those niches, I think that's something you really need to think about.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's true. And now, you were saying.
I was just going to say, it's okay. Especially like now, because we are seeing like such like a focus on like community and, like what are your values and like value driven brands. And, I'm only going to shop with like this brand because X, Y, and Z. So if you don't make sure that your content is speaking like truth about your brand and like conveying like those values and like this is what we stand for and this is who we are, we made this for, it's going to get lost in the sauce. But then also like you mentioned, that trust factor, like I don't trust you because I don't know what you're talking about. Right? Like I'm not, yesterday you said something totally different. Like I'm so confused. Like what is happening over here?
That's true. Yeah. It is. I think it's something that, I mean, if you have a business, I know people starting just, maybe they have they're on a budget. I totally understand that. And if you're using it, just make sure to read it and, don't use it as it comes out. Because even if you have a great prompt, just don't keep it as it is.
Still
no, take it from us.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Now, well, something else I wanted to ask you is, and I think this will be very valuable, not just for copywriters like you and me, but also any business owner listening to us right now. So you were recently featured in a magazine. Again, congratulations for that. So I think I want to ask you, like, what are your tips for, PR, whether you're a copywriter or you're just someone who wants to, put themselves out there, or you have a business and you want to be featured in a magazine, or like, what are your top tips?
The first one would be to follow different journalists and to see if they are ever looking for people or items or whatever that would relate to you. And then if they are, then I mean that's you're in, right? The second thing that I would do is, if you have an idea, there's nothing wrong with pitching that idea to a journalist. Just give them the reasons why you're the best person or the best brand to be featured in this. And the third thing I would say is more like on like mindset, because it can be, it can be a bitch, right? Like, why would anybody want to like interview me? Like, why would anybody like care about you? Are worthwhile and you have something to say, and you made your business, you created your business, or you created your brand for a reason, and it wasn't by accident. So just that alone, people are going to want to know about you, your brand, what you stand for, what you can offer. So if you're having like that, that feeling of like, like, I don't know, like they probably won't pick me anyway. Like
Imposter
they probably won't do
syndrome.
this. Yeah, like all that imposter syndrome. Like, no, like just go for it. And I mean, like if people say no, like who cares? Like then so like on to the next. Like who cares?
Exactly.
But I know it's way easier than said. And I mean,
I know, and
yeah.
and you also have a thick skin, which also helps. But I think people want nowadays, and this goes for writers, freelancers, business owners, whoever's listening right now. People want to see authentic people. People are tired of people pretending to be someone they're not, and people are like, I don't know, they no longer. Luckily, thank goodness, consumers right now are way more ethical, and they're more aware of, the old marketing techniques that were used.
Yes.
And they want to buy from people, especially if we're talking about like, brands that are just starting or are not like huge, like, I don't know, Nike, Adidas, whatever. They want to buy from a person. They want to know your story. They want to know, why did you start that business? Why is it important? Why should I buy from you and not from her or from him? And I think that business owners, writers, anyone listening to this, they need to not be afraid and share the story, because we all have an interesting story. Maybe some people might be listening to this and like, oh wait, yeah, but I don't have a disease. I never lived anywhere else. I don't have an interesting story to tell. I don't have like a hero journey to tell. I can assure you that if I sit down with you and I ask you a few questions, you have a very interesting life, no matter your age. We all go through a different life, and we have different perspectives and experiences. And I think that it's really worth it to just tell it to the world.
Definitely.
And that's what we're here for. If they can't do it, but yeah, it's really interesting. And now something I would like to ask you is, like, being you yourself a writer and a blogger as well, how did you find it being featured in a vlog?
A little like unnerving. So like, even though, like I just like gave like that, maybe it was a wonderful answer, but even though I just gave like that answer, I said that because I felt the exact same way, right? Like, why would anybody care like to know about like my business? Like, why would anybody care like what my quote is about? Why would anybody care like about like my 5 tips? Like, who cares? Right? So it was unnerving, but it was also like it was a big deal for me personally, because it was like, okay, like you did it. Like you did it. You did it. You wanted this. You wanted to be featured, even though you were scared, even though you thought like nobody would care, and you did it. So pat on my back, and
Yeah, many pats on your back. I mean, girl, all the things you've done, and I'm thinking like in my head is everything happened in how many years? Because it all happened quite fast, right? Like when you
Yeah.
moved, everything started happening quickly.
Yeah. So what is that? 18 to 24. That is what, 7 years? 6, 7 years now? Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm really bad at math. Don't ask me
No, it's
about
okay.
that.
I am too. That's why we do it.
Yeah, that's
It's
why
like
we
six,
write.
right. So it's been, so it's been 9 years it'll be 9 years in February that I've been diagnosed with MS. So nine, so six, so it's been 6 years. And it really is that thing, like, that quote that it's like, don't be surprised, like that, don't be surprised, like once you decide, like the universe will just kind of like make things happen. That's kind of like what happened. Like I knew that I knew that I needed to leave Houston. I knew that I probably should have left before that, but it was time.
Wow.
And then when I was in China, I was just away, like I was just like in this foreign country and I didn't know the language, like I told you earlier. And I went there knowing how to say hello, and that was it. And so I really just got to learn about myself again and to do like some like inner healing stuff that I needed to do, and just kind of like allow myself to be creative and to like dream, because I didn't for so long. And then, the world shut down and I came back to my hometown, and it was definitely like a blessing in disguise, because I've just had the opportunity to make my dreams that I don't think that I had come true.
Right.
You know, and I'm going to be 39. I'm going to be 39 in March. Like,
It's crazy when you think about it. I mean, we're
yeah,
talking, so if it happened like 6 years ago, well, I'm really bad at math, but like I'm trying to think of
I was
the
like 34. Oh,
percentage of your life when everything changed. It was so quick. Because if
so
you think
quick.
about it, it's really quick.
Yeah, no, it is
It all
definitely very
happened
quick,
suddenly.
so suddenly. And it makes you really, when you think about it, it makes you really realize, um, at least like in my case right now, like, yeah, how many lives have I lived? Like how
Right.
many lives? And, just again, like just being grateful, and just, you know, being happy, and being proud of myself for like taking the leap, and not just being like, well, I'm getting older, which I mean I'm not, but getting getting older, and I should probably just like find a job, and like it's I should have done this when I was like younger. Like, no, you can do whatever you want whenever you
Yeah.
want to.
And
You
you
just have
do
to
it when it
decide.
finds you.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
going back to the quote, like it
Yeah.
found you when it had to find you.
Yeah.
Now, and I want to ask you, was that the first time you left the US?
No.
Oh,
Mm-mm.
okay. Okay, okay. But was that the biggest change when it comes to actually, going somewhere else in terms of, the culture, the language, the time zone, like everything is very different, I imagine.
Yes. Yes and no. So when I was 16, I had the opportunity to live in Thailand for the summer. I went with one of my girlfriends and visited her family. I didn't even know how to say hello there. So, but I had her. Um, but I think with China, it was different because I was older, and I was like on my own. Um, and it was for a longer period of time. I was there like a year and a half. So, yeah.
Wow. There's something really interesting that I find between everyone, like everyone who travels a lot or has lived abroad, they all have this baggage with them, but they're so self-aware. There's something with, actually, yesterday I was actually listening to a podcast that was about leaving your motherland and going somewhere else, and how it changes your brain. And it's incredible because I think of people we know, for example, like, I don't know, Diana, Carrie, all of them, like living here and there, and like they're like these young ladies, but they feel like they've lived this many lives, and they have this knowledge, and this they're super wise. And I think that comes with traveling and getting out of your comfort zone, because going on your own, it's hard. And I think I want to ask you, and again, this will be another selfish question, but I think I'm not the only person here who actually wants to move out or something. But what are your top tips for someone who's actually thinking about moving abroad and alone?
So don't do what I did and just like decide like on a whim that you're going to move to a country that you don't know the language, because it sounds wonderful, right? Like it sounds like, oh, you are so brave. No, I like walked around like with my phone, and it was like Google Translate, and trying
but wait,
to buy.
You're saying on a whim, but how long did it take you to make the decision?
A day.
What?
I promise you. Okay, so like I went there.
Oh my God.
A day.
I thought it was like a bit longer. Wow.
No,
a day.
No, it was like my first full day in China, and I was like, I'm gonna move here, and like everybody thought it was full of,
you went on
everybody
vacation.
thought it was like full of shit. Yeah,
but what made you go like, you know what, I'm staying here? I just want to know that.
I don't know. It was just kind of like the vibe. I don't know, like lack of better words, like the vibe. But also, I think that I was in a bad place. Like, I'm not going to lie about it. I was in a bad place, and I really needed this. And I was fortunate enough to have like a girlfriend there, like, one of my best friends there. And so I lived with her. But my tips, because I'll go on a tangent. So my tips are: do some research, learn how to say more than hello, have some money, have some money. Make sure that you're able to like live if you don't have a job when you get there. Go visit the place before you just up and decide to move, because everything, it gets real when you had like a one-way ticket, and you don't, and there's no return. One-way ticket, and you have your suitcases, and now you live there. Like, it gets really real. And so if you just show up somewhere, you don't really know, but it looked cool because you saw it on Instagram or TikTok or something like that. Like, don't do that. Just go visit, see if you like that, see if it agrees with you, and then like make a plan. So I think all in that, like, sum it all up, like, have a plan. Like, don't just like go like on a whim. Like, have some sort of a plan, so that when you start to feel homesick, because it will happen, when you start to feel homesick, or you start to be like, I can't do this anymore, or like you just had like a bad day, or something was like frustrating, like, so you can remember, like, I have a plan. I'm here for a reason. Like, this is like my why. Like, I don't need to like go back home. It's just a day. It's going to be fine. Like, tomorrow will be better. Because I mean, it'll happen.
Mm-hmm.
You're away from home.
Yeah.
And it's totally
eventually you'll miss your people.
Eventually you'll miss,
everything.
Whatever. Like, and it'll be like the craziest thing. Like, I remember, like, I never eat macaroni and cheese, like from the box. Never. That's all I wanted, because I couldn't have it.
Really?
So I'm just saying, like,
wow.
Yeah, that's like all I wanted, like, in life, for like days. I remember, like, I just want macaroni and cheese from the box. Never ate it when I lived in America, but like now I'm gone. And that's
now I want it
in life. Yeah,
it's crazy. I see that with many people from Argentina who move across, away, and they go somewhere else, or here we have alfajores. I don't know if you ever heard about it. It's like a cookie with dulce de leche. It's like toffee. It's super yummy, but most people here, they actually don't eat it because it's too sugary. But it's crazy how when people leave, they're all like, if you're traveling and you're going there, they're like, you're coming here, please bring alfajores. And it's like, they didn't even eat it here. Like, girl, you didn't eat that here. But no, I need it.
like that
It's
taste of home.
crazy.
Like it's like
Yeah,
you
that's
can't
the thing.
explain
I
it. It's
think
just like
that's the
it's
thing.
a taste of home.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah. And I
Mhm.
think something I want to ask you that is very connected with this and entrepreneurship and whatnot is, I think that, you know, starting your own business or freelancing and traveling are like fast tracks for self-discovery and self-growth.
Yeah.
And how, what do you say you learned not just from traveling, but from starting your own business? Like, what things you learned that, you know, made you grow as a person?
A lot. Something that I learned, but I'm still learning every day, and it's difficult sometimes, is to trust myself. Like sometimes you're just like, I don't know. And so I don't want to make a decision because I don't want to make the wrong decision, right? But then it's like you don't make a decision, and so nothing ever changes. So it just trust yourself. Like just make a
Mm-hmm.
decision and and then you have to be okay with it. And then that's it.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out, then it didn't work out. And so now you know, and you try something else. Um that, but then also like the knowledge, the no, the knowledge, because the knowledge and like the realization, because we all know like duh, like everything that you didn't deal with will come up in your business, and it will be
Mm-hmm.
in your face, and you have no other choice but to address that. So whether it's going to therapy, like having a
Right.
conversation that you like didn't want to have, like whatever it is, it's going to like show up. And you know that sounds, I say like the knowledge, but like the realization, because you know people would tell me that and I'd be like duh, like
Mm-hmm.
that's logical. But then when it happens to you, it's like, oh shit, yeah, no, they're not lying, and shit gets real, real fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're making me think because I said freelancing or starting your own business and traveling. And you know what? The reason why I want to move away is not just because I'm looking for freedom, because I think it's like my top value, and one of the biggest freedoms a person can have is just travel whenever they want and whatever, you know, to whatever place they want.
Yeah.
And when I'm in my case, I mean, it's not like Argentina's passport is terrible. In fact, is one of the best ones. But you know, having a European citizenship, like it opens up way more places you can travel to, and like having a you know a hotspot there is easier to travel because you know you being from America, you might know it's kind of like the same thing in Argentina. We have big countries, and like
Mm-hmm.
traveling around here, it's not only more expensive, but it's also more inconvenient because you have like, you know, you go to the middle of nowhere and you don't have internet, and maybe you
Yeah.
want to live by the mountain or, you know, something like that. I mean, I like mountains, but if I wanted to do that here, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing with you here because the internet wouldn't be that good.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want to do that, I'm like, okay, well, I need to go somewhere where I can live in a place I like, but that it's not in the middle of nowhere, like Patagonia, for example, or I don't know how it is like right there in Montana, but I imagine it's you know it gets hard,
I think they have like,
or
yeah,
yeah, or
like pretty
rural
remote there. I don't know.
America, but yeah, it doesn't happen in Europe. So, but I'm thinking that's one of the reasons, and that's a completely valuable reason to move away. But another one is because I feel like I want to escape from something because you know trauma and things that happened to me years ago. And now that you're saying this, that you have to address the problem because the problem is going to follow you, and I'm thinking, do you know what, I think I do need to address this problem because it probably will follow me to
Oh,
whatever place
100%.
I go to. Like if
100%
I
it's going
feel
to follow you.
unsafe in the street here for some reason, it doesn't mean I won't feel unsafe, you know, in Italy or whatever I go. So
Yeah.
it got me thinking.
Definitely, definitely try to address everything that you can address before you leave. Um,
Yeah.
but then it's just like running your business, right? Like, sorry, just like running your business, right? Like something else will come up. So
Hmm.
just, you know, take it as it goes, you know, and for
Yeah.
whatever your reasoning is, you know, for wanting to leave, it doesn't matter, right? Like you want to leave, so then you should do that. But definitely, like if there are things, like if you're running from something, address that, because when you get there, when you get to wherever it is that you decide that you want to live, whatever you were running from, like just came with you. Like it's like you packed it in your suitcase, and then it's like, oh, okay, so I live here, so we live here now. Oh, we live here now.
Oh my God, yeah.
We live here now. Oh, okay, because you didn't deal with it, so I'm here, and so
you're right.
Let's learn a language, like whatever it is, right? So address it before, then you're gonna then if you don't, and then you go somewhere else, then you're always running from something, and so that's not a way to live. So that's all.
You're actually right. You're leaving me thinking right now, because I was like, actually yesterday I was thinking about that as I was listening to that podcast. It's a psychology podcast, and they were talking about that, and like how many people run away from something when they're of course it's not the same like running away from a war, of course, like
right.
there are different reasons, but like when you're moving away for comfort, and it's a choice that you get to make, like there's no doubt it's going to follow you. But it's crazy because we humans, we never think it's going to happen to us. Like, no, I'm going to be fine. Everyone thinks like that. And, the other day I don't know if you're into movies, or if you like watching movies. The other day I watched it's not a remake because it's a different movie, but I was watching The Society of the Snow. I don't know if you watched it. It's a really
what?
Of the Snow. Oh my God, girl, you gotta watch it. And everyone listening to this, you gotta watch it. It's a story it's based on a real story. Have you watched the movie Alive?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's the same story.
Oh, on Netflix.
It's on Netflix.
And then they crash on the mountain.
Yeah.
And there's where I don't know where they are, but it's in
Argentina. Yeah.
Oh,
so,
okay.
But it's not a remake because it's a new movie. It's based on a book that one of the survivors' best friend wrote. So the survivors are actually involved in the making of the movie, which it's great because it's more raw and it's more real, and you get to see how they felt. So I really recommend you watch that movie. It's a really good one. But it's crazy how they said in the movie, and then I because I'm a little bit obsessed with that story, because it's such a I'm a fan of like stories of the underdog and people actually going through rough stuff and making it, because it's you get to learn from their experience. And they all thought so the guy who actually saved them, who was like, he had the idea to like we cannot stay here forever. One of us has to actually cross the mountains. They didn't even know where they were. They were like in the frontier between Argentina and Chile in Los Andes, which is like, but it's like if you go there, it's huge. I mean, you have to be like a very prepared climber to actually go there. And they were starving, and they didn't have the energy, and they were freezing to death. And he was like, but yet if we stay here, we're gonna die. So one of us has to go. So this guy was like, okay, I'm going to go. And another guy followed him along, both of them thinking that they would die. But the guy who had the idea, he was like the only person in the entire group thinking, I'm going to die. And everyone else was thinking, it's not going to happen to me. I'm going to survive. And, many others died because it was a very terrible accident. But it's crazy how we humans think we will live forever. This is never going to happen to me. And it just doesn't happen with like, if you're going to live or not. It's with everything. You feel like, this problem will not follow me. This is not going to happen to me. And then the guy who actually thought that, he was not special and that he was going to die, but he was going to die trying to help himself and his friends, is the one who actually saved them all. So wow. That's crazy. It reminded me of that. And it got me thinking.
That's so interesting. I understand what you're saying though. Because it's like the people that are like, life is
bold.
what it is.
Yeah.
Like,
just take
whatever,
it, take
like,
a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's everybody else that are like, that'll never happen to me. And you're like, they're like in a corner. Like, how do I deal with,
Yeah, exactly. And another thing that has to do with that one also, not believing that it's going to happen to you or not is if you think that, I don't know, if you just think that whether you're going to make it or not, if you still try, you might do it. And it
Mhm.
goes, I think this applies to everything, overcoming a disease, going somewhere new, talking to that person, going for that race, pitching that client. You never know. I mean, worst
Yeah.
case scenario, you get a no.
But no is just next opportunity. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you
you're
should know.
one no closer to the next yes, if you think about it.
Exactly.
And
Hmm.
you get used to it. And the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Now, I don't want to keep you for long because I don't know how
It's
long
okay.
we've been going, to be honest. The time flies by when I do this podcast because I get to talk about interesting things, at least for me. So before I leave you with the last question, I would like to ask you something. I know you're someone who likes reading as any other writer. So I would like you to give the audience a few recommendations for books that change your life. Like, these books help me, navigate this issue in my life.
It's really okay. So I don't have any that come on like, there's nothing on the top of my head that I would say, if you're dealing with this, you should read this book. What I will say is, if you are dealing with something, you don't necessarily have to like read like an inspirational book to help you get through it. Just do something that you like. So like, for instance, like I love thrillers, right? Like if you were to ever look at my library, it's mostly thrillers and then like some self-help and then some copywriting, but it's mostly thrillers. If I'm having a bad day, I'm reading a thriller. I'm not reading like You're a Badass or, Big Mad. I'm not reading those. Like
Right.
I'm reading something that I like that's going to help me get through that bad day. And there are so many other outlets for you if you are dealing with something that maybe a book wouldn't be like the best option for you. Like maybe it would be a
Hmm.
podcast, maybe it would be like a movie, maybe it would be, whatever. Yeah, sorry, long-winded way to say I don't have
No,
anything for you
it's
guys.
okay.
Sorry.
No, and that's something I want to ask you though, because I'm guilty of this. I read a lot of nonfiction books, and something I noticed, and this is me being completely honest as a copywriter. Like I'm really, when it comes to copy, I'm like really sales focused, and I want to develop more of the storytelling. And I know that comes from reading
Mm-hmm.
actually reading fiction, and I
Fiction.
never allow myself to have that time to unwind and be like, I'm gonna sit with this book and have some
You
tea, and like I should do that. So I would like to have
Reggie,
some suggestions, like
Reggie,
what
you
books
have
would
to.
you? Yeah,
Reggie,
I
you
know
have
I
to.
have to.
You have to. Especially because, our brains are going so much every day to try to like, like I said before, like come up with a story, come up with a hook, come up with an angle. Like, does this even resonate? Like, oh my gosh, like I gotta take a break. So you have to have like an outlet. And
Hmm.
so for thrillers, what I would recommend, The Paris Apartment is by Lucy Foley. I'm just gonna go through my Kindle.
Yeah,
Give
please,
me 1 second.
please.
Just give me a second.
I need this. No, yeah, I made it my goal this year. This is again another selfish question, but I made it my goal this year to read more fiction because I need to do it, not just because it will make me a better writer, but also
Mhm.
because I owe it to myself, because I need to have that time to unwind and not feel guilty that I'm not reading books on copywriting and marketing and sales and personal
Yeah,
development and business and stuff like that. Like you gotta have something that you actually enjoy. I mean, not that
you
I
do.
don't enjoy that, but it doesn't hit the same.
Another one. There is she's a little I like her. Some people are like, she seems like she's kind of like YA, but I really like her. Her name is Geneva Rose. And so thrillers still. So you shouldn't have come here. One of us is dead. The perfect marriage.
You shouldn't have come here. That title is
It's,
like, oh my God, I need to know what happened.
you'll
Don't
never
tell
guess
me.
it.
Please don't
You'll
tell
never
me.
you'll never guess it. You'll never guess it.
I'm already hooked.
And then if you like political kind of like thrillers, The Widow from Cara Rhoda.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to read them. I'm actually going to go back when I publish the episode and I'm going to take down notes and I'm going to download those ebooks for sure. Now, something I always ask people before I leave them is there any question you would have liked me to ask you, or anything you want to, any message you would like to leave the listeners with?
I think that it's just like more of the things that I was saying, trust yourself. You have a story. If you want to share it, don't be afraid to share it. And don't be afraid to do something, no matter where you are in your life, no matter what your age is. Don't be afraid to do something that can possibly change your life, because I think the biggest thing is regret. And I think that we should just all strive for like not living with any regret if you can help it. So those are my words, my pearls of wisdom for your audience.
I love it. Now, Ashley, thank you for coming. Where can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram, at Ashley Bryant Copy, and then my website, ashleybryantcopy.com.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being here, Ashley. It's been really you have an amazing story. You're a super strong woman. I'm super glad to have you on. And I know that anyone out there listening to this podcast, they will take very, very, many wisdom nuggets out of here. So thank you for coming. And for everyone listening, thank you for listening as well.
Thank you.
If you like this episode, please don't forget to leave us a like, subscribe, and leave us a review. It helps more than you think to bring you more amazing content like this one. Thank you. See you next time.